Hello and welcome to History Happened Everywhere.
The Verdict.
This is our after-show podcast where we look back at our previous episode, Ghosts in the United States of America.
Ugh.
So if you haven't listened to that, go back and have a listen, or else there will be spoilers ahead.
Don't bother.
Well, I was going to re-record that, but I think that's it. Hello and welcome to History Happened Everywhere, The Verdict. My name is Ryan Weir and I am here in the studio with my good bud and pal, Peter Goddard.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm well.
Can you feel it? He's coming. Like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man thumping down the street. Behind those city blocks. It's Mr. Paul Dersley.
Oh dear.
Oh no. Oh dear. That's not a great start. How you doing, Paul? You okay?
Yes, I don't know the reference, so...
Oh, that's going to be problematic about the Ghostbusters banter section then, isn't it?
I think I did see it. I thought it was an utter load of rubbish.
That does not surprise me in any way, shape or form. Paul, I am drinking a drink. Pete has got a lovely drink in front of him. What are you drinking tonight?
I have some yellow liquid.
And the temperature of this liquid?
Are we talking about your colostomy bag again?
It's room temperature.
So what are you drinking?
It's slightly cold. It's lemon juice.
Lemon juice? You got a bad throat or something? Just to help you, this is a professional acting method.
Yes, I should gargle with it. No, it's if you make it with just the skin of the lemon, not the rind or the juice, it's actually gives a very mellow flavour.
Oh, lovely. We should have a little bar. We should have HHE Bar and Grill.
You're right, HHE Bar and Grill, right?
Yeah.
Regional meals of various things from podcasts past.
Yeah. No, wine. We do wine. Different wines, different years.
From different countries.
That's what I'm saying.
The Wine-a-later.
The Wine-a-later.
So you don't get to choose the wine. We tell you what wine you're going to have based on a random chance.
A late 80s Californian wine would be very, very good.
Right, but a 12th century Romanian wine?
Yes, it might be slightly off.
I like that. It's like it turns the wine world on its head. They won't know what to make of it. There's like, how have you paired it? Well, we randomly select 3 aspects, and that's the wine you get.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just jump straight into it. The first thing that we do on The Verdict, Pete, is...
1 minute recap.
1 minute recap. Hit the button, and off you go.
So, I talked about the United States, which is 50 states, a district, and some self-governing territories. We looked at Pliny the Younger, who told a ghost story from the Roman times that sounded not out of place today. We also went to Brookfield, Connecticut, where in 1981 we saw the first recorded use of "I was possessed by a demon" as a defence in court for murder. It did not work. We then met Ed and Lorraine Warren, demonologists who reappeared in famous spooky tales of the time, such as the Enfield poltergeist, which had pictorial evidence of a levitating child. Ryan was not convinced. We met the Warrens again in 1986, where the Snedeker family had found themselves terrorised by ghosts and demons when they unwittingly moved into an old funeral parlour. We talked about Ghostbusters and Slimer being modelled on John Belushi. We also did a little ghost hunting in the flat, and a ghost said, "Correct." We talked about whether ghosts were caused by magnetic waves, and finally we contacted the spirit world with a Ouija board.
That was last week's episode done, summarised nicely. Nice one, son. Now we're over to a young Dersley, who's gonna tell you what he thought of thee. He'll take you apart without any care. He's the lovely Paul Dersley. The lovely Paul Dersley.
What the hell is a magnetic wave?
Oh, we've gone straight into it. Do you know what? Before we started... Paul, Pete came to me and he went, "Do you know what? I'm going to get an absolute grilling on." I was like, "What?" He went, "Magnetic waves."
I was gonna fess up that I didn't really quite know what I meant by that, and I was simply regurgitating phrases from the internet.
Come on, explain
Well,
this
they're-
magnetic waves then,
Well,
Paul.
they're electromagnetic waves. They're not magnetic waves. They're electromagnetic
Oh, well, that's not
waves.
far off.
Well, yes, it is, because you can't have a magnetic wave. It can't exist.
Well, then, yeah, that's fair then.
Fool.
So how come an electromagnetic wave can exist?
Because the electromagnetic waves they're polarized at 90 degrees to one another.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that clarified everything, didn't it?
And basically, the magnetic bit pulls the electric bit, and the electric bit pulls the magnetic bit. It's really quite amazing how a wave works like that.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. What, if you could dumb that down for me, what is an electromagnetic wave?
A wiggle.
Oh, right, okay. I like wiggles.
So yes, I was on thin ice when I was talking about geomagnetic thermal. And then I threw in, I think, sunspots as well, just as an effort to cloud the situation.
You've just thrown in thin ice to the metaphor as well, just to really complicate things.
So yes, truly, I did not know what I was talking about, other than that magnetic waves, electromagnetic waves, may be the cause of ghosts. I just didn't know what was the cause of electromagnetic waves.
Right, so just to roll back then. The sun produces waves, these electromagnetic waves, that travel to Earth.
Yes, it's called light,
Right. Okay.
and amongst other things.
Okay, right. So it produces light, which includes electromagnetic waves.
No, light is an electromagnetic wave.
Okay, I'm learning here, guys. This is important. The sun, a glowing planet of
It's not a planet, it's a star.
Well, the Earth's a big magnet as well, right? Because it's got the molten core of magnety stuff. That's why there's north and south poles.
Well, basically, the Earth acts as an enormous magnet, and what it does is it repels the magnetically or the charged particles from the sun, which would sort of bathe the Earth, and so it acts as like a magnetic cage around the Earth.
Oh, that's cool.
And it means we don't get irradiated with nasty cosmic rays.
Okay, that suddenly makes sense to me. So is it those waves that protect us, this cage around the Earth, that also might affect our brains in such a way that you might think that you're seeing a ghost?
No.
Right. No, as in it's not those waves, it's other waves? Or no, as in no waves would affect your brain and make you think you've seen ghosts?
Well, it's a person's susceptibility or gullibility, if you will, to take on those ideas.
So you don't think there is a physical influence?
Certainly electromagnetic waves can affect the brain.
Yeah, so we know that epileptics sometimes see visions and sights, right? So
Exactly, but I don't necessarily think that it's causal. There may be some link, but that your God helmet that you mentioned, they did a double-blind experiment on that, and nothing was found.
right. So what you're saying then is that if you're seeing ghosts, it's probably because there are ghosts.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, because if it's not electromagnetic waves,
Well, they're seeing ghosts because they think there are ghosts there, or they think that whatever they're sensing is there, but you take LSD and you see bright colours and whatever, and are they ghosts? It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's what your reality, or what your concept of reality at that point in that different state is seeing.
so have you ever seen a ghost? I'm
No.
suspecting no from the tone of this.
Have you ever seen anything that's unexplained, that other people might think of as a ghost?
Well, no, because everything that has been considered a ghost has always been explained, either by science or it's a bit of fakery.
So I would draw your attention, Paul, to the photograph of the levitating Enfield poltergeist.
I haven't seen that, but it sounds like it's a child jumping off a bed.
Yeah, that's
It
pretty much
really
exactly
is.
what it
It
is.
really
yeah.
is.
That's what it is.
But then it's making my point. If people want to see that as a levitating child, they will see it. It's the same as all conspiracy theories, Ryan.
Wait, whoa, what? Why am I getting dragged into this?
I think we know, Ryan.
It's hard to argue against a conspiracy theorist because they have faith, and you can't argue against faith because they'll just come up with, oh, you just say that anyway, blah blah blah, and I believe it, and all of that, and you could put as many of Bertrand Russell's teapots in orbit around Saturn, and they won't agree.
I think where I come from on this is that there is an arrogance to humanity, which is to assume that we know all the answers. And yet we have been learning things every day.
But scientists don't know all the answers. Scientists know they don't know all the answers.
Well, this is my point. And so maybe the next big discovery will be ghosts. We don't know. We didn't know that black holes existed. And then we did some science and someone discovered a black hole.
I like that we did some science. It
I'm
covered a lot. They did a lot of
chucking
work,
myself
that phrase, didn't it? We did some science and then there were black holes.
So what I'm saying is I don't have the answers for ghosts. I'm not saying that ghosts necessarily exist. But point being is that in argument to these things is that should we outright say ghosts don't exist, or should we say...
A black hole was first postulated less than 50 years ago and they've been proved to exist. Before that, the concept was never there. The concept of a ghost has been there since time immemorial, like, Roman lemures and as Pete was saying. Nobody's come up with an explanation over many thousands of years. Whereas, the black hole stuff was sorted out in less than 50.
It's a fair point. I wish I was more intelligent to argue this. Okay, so here's my theory. Ghosts are not the spirits of people that have died. They are echoes from other dimensions, mirror universes.
I had a theory that was slightly similar to that, which was that there, in the future, when time travel is inevitably invented,
yeah.
What it would do is, because you wouldn't be able to interact with things, it wouldn't be time travel in that sense. You'd be sort of projected back.
Right.
And so everyone would dress up to look at like they're in a certain time.
Right.
But some of them would get sent incorrectly. So you would see these images of people from previous times.
Yeah.
And that's what ghosts are. They're actually time travelers who've been misdirected.
Or just going to a cheaper tourist company.
Yeah, like a
They're
budget,
like, it's fine.
Budget time travel.
16th century, 19th century, come on.
Yeah, so they get you all dressed up.
So you have to wear a sheet to do these go on these journeys, do you?
Yeah, with eye holes cut out. That's the cheapest journey back.
Exactly.
But I think you've ridiculed my original point, Pete, which is that I think these are interdimensional beings that are either accidentally being projected, like their atoms are being quantum.
You just said atoms to add some science to a flavour of science to your mad theory.
I just used the word quantum too.
I know.
There is a singularity.
It started to feel like a movie pitch.
Yeah, this is my most Star Trek moment. There's a wormhole through space. It's like if you get a piece of paper and fold it in half and then push your pencil through it and then...
Ghosts.
Well, the wormholes are theoretically possible.
Ghosts!
The problem is, I said theoretically possible.
Okay.
But we are incapable of creating the energies needed to create one.
Yet.
I suppose yet could, but we'd have to harness the energy of a star to do it.
That does sound complicated.
All of it, all of the energy of a star.
Pop a cover over the star and suck up the energy.
Siphon, pour it out. Anyway.
Yeah, we'd have to be at least a type 1 or 2 civilization to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this section. Pete, do you believe in ghosts? Yes or no?
No.
Paul, do you believe in ghosts? Yes or no?
Do you even wish me to give that an answer?
Yes, that's why I asked.
No.
Ryan, do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I thought you believe in pretty much everything.
I've seen a ghost too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, twice.
So you don't believe your own eyes?
No, I don't. It's interesting, isn't it?
Were you tripping at the time?
No. No, I was just sleepy or had been asleep, and I think that it was just my brain playing tricks on me. It does that. I don't think this is happening.
But is that a ghost? You see there is the thing. You are naming something as a ghost, which may be just some internal firing of your brain.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I'm saying no. But I'm saying no in a very strange way, because if President Obama came on TV tomorrow and said, ghosts exist, so deal with that now.
I'm curious as to why President Obama's doing that.
Oh, yeah, it's a different one, isn't it? What year are we?
Oh, my Lord. You don't know where you are, do you?
I'm actually a ghost.
Have you, in fact, time travelled?
No.
So I have a question, Paul, which is, let's assume there are such things as ghosts, and you died and you came back as a ghost. Who would you haunt and how?
Why did I know that some sort of question like this was going? And you know my answer, what my answer's going to be. It can't happen, so what's the point of saying that?
Because it's imagination.
Why don't you just ask the question you want to ask? Is who do you want to spy on? Which is basically all you're asking.
I mean, sure,
That's
if you
fair,
want to
that's a good way of
just
putting it.
remove the modesty curtain from this question, I suppose you could do that.
I've got a question for you.
Hey, wait, Ryan, who are you going to haunt?
Are we still doing that one?
I want to know who you're going to haunt.
I feel like Dersley just ramrodded that question into the ground. But who am I going to haunt? Okay, I'm going to haunt Paul Dersley.
And how?
Because I would prove to him that ghosts existed by haunting him every single day.
I thought you'd just do it subtly, like move his glass of wine
Nope.
every now and then.
I'd be stood there the whole time.
Hello.
Asking him questions. Just annoying him.
Hello,
moving
I'm
stuff
Ryan Weir.
around.
This is Haunting Happens Everywhere.
Well, that's the way to do it, isn't it? It's to sort of make ever so slight changes in lots of things, and so it would just give you a sense of, oh, there's something odd going on, but you can't really be sure of what it is.
So the chap who wrote Sherlock Holmes,
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle, was a very keen spiritualist, and he was big pals with Harry Houdini, who was very much the opposite and spent a lot of his time unmasking fraudulent mediums.
Right.
And I think, I may be misremembering this, but I think they had an agreement that if Arthur Conan Doyle, when he died, he would have come back. It might have been between Houdini and his wife as well.
Okay.
But yeah, they would come back and say, hello, here's the code that you know it's definitely me, rather than something fraudulent. And sadly, nothing ever came of it. So,
Well, that he said.
he may have secretly been told that it's real, but I think he would have mentioned it.
You see, that's the typical conspiracy theorist answer.
Well, why would he tell everyone if he suddenly knew the weight of that? Imagine if we just found out tomorrow that ghosts did exist. Like, that would change almost nothing, but a lot of things might happen differently. And that's why he kept it a secret. But here's the thing, all right? It's inspired a thought in my head, which we didn't really talk about in the episode, which is ghosts have unfinished business.
I think the most common trope is hasn't been properly interred. I think that's, we've come across it a few times. I think it's the Rwanda episode where they had a type of spirit that was a soldier who hadn't been buried properly.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right.
And I think not being buried is one of the classic why is a ghost problems.
Why is it still here?
Yeah.
Why hasn't it moved on to the next place?
The others are...
So what about cremation then? That would bugger it up a bit.
Well, I mean, you could argue that if cremation was considered proper burial, then that's fine. It's like...
So what if someone was in a building that burnt down and they were cremated in the building burning down? Would they be properly cremated or not?
I don't make the rules, but I would say it's about how the spirit feels.
I think this is the sort of the fundamental thing. Everybody who believes in ghosts must also be religious.
Because
I think they would call themselves spiritual without necessarily being religious.
But well, they have this concept of spirits and afterlife, and all of this stuff, which is related to religion.
yeah.
It's all superstition.
I think you can distinguish between religious and spiritual, but they are both faith-based concepts currently. Because, of course, once something has been proven, then it ceases to be spiritual. It becomes just life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that most people need some sort of religious sentiments or spiritual sentiments to get them through. It's just, it's the way that people are, that a lot of people are comforted. And it's difficult for me because you think about it and you sort of sit there rationally thinking, well, that's all a load of bollocks. But of course, when you also stand by, I think, well, for a lot of people, it does provide some sort of solace.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as real to them as it's unreal to you.
Yes, obviously, the issue is you don't have to keep on proselytizing it over onto me.
Yes, that is true. Is a zombie a ghost?
I don't really know what a zombie is.
A zombie's not a ghost because a zombie's quite almost the opposite of a ghost. It's a sort of reanimated
Isn't
body.
the zombie alive?
Well, it's just in Ghostbusters, the film, there is a taxi that pulls up once the ghosts are released into the city, and the taxi driver, the cab driver, turns his head really slowly round to the people sitting in the back of his taxi, and it's a zombie, not a ghost.
Or is it just a ghost that's manifested itself to look like a zombie? Is it just because he's not see-through that's bothering you?
I thought a zombie looked like a normal person, or have I got this mixed up with other
A zombie is
things?
basically a reanimated corpse, and this thing does look like a reanimated corpse.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it's just a ghost that's presenting itself.
It's very
like
corporal.
that. It is quite earthy looking, I'll give you that. But do they have to be see-through to be ghosts?
It just bugs me. It's always bugged me since I was a kid and I saw it. I'm like, this is Ghostbusters, and there's ghosts flying around all over the place, and then there's this one zombie cab driver.
Maybe he was like that before.
You don't see any other zombies anywhere else. Maybe it just was a cab
That was just
driver.
him being a cab driver. It's very stressful in New York. That's what it'll do to you.
Yeah. But I've segued into Ghostbusters, so let's talk about Ghostbusters.
Nicely done.
Okay, I'll just pop out for 5 minutes. then.
Nope. Stay where you are.
So you haven't seen the film, is this what you're telling us?
Well, no, I have seen the film, but it was in 1984, and I thought it was an utter load of cack.
Yeah. Not even funny.
No, because it was sort of American type humour, which isn't funny.
Did it scare you? Is that why you got upset by it?
Yes, I wet myself, but it was all.
Have you ever watched a horror film and been scared by it?
The word scared, I suppose, needs a bit of definition. You sort of see something and it shocks you, and you jump.
Okay,
is
I'm
that
going to give you a
scared?
scenario. Have you watched a supernatural horror film? Like where a creature is chasing people, crawling through the TV, or...
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have an anecdote about The Ring, which is the movie that I was most scared watching.
Sure. Tell us about it.
I was watching, it was the American version of The Ring, which
Okay.
I think is one of those rare things that I think is actually better than the Japanese version. But
Okay.
Anyway, I was watching it and it was super scary, and I was on my own and it was dark and it was creepy. And I was alone in the flat that I was living in at that time. And then suddenly something jumped on the chair behind me.
Right.
And what had happened was, we didn't have a cat, but downstairs had a cat, and someone had left the door open downstairs. So this cat had to come in, and it jumped up behind me. A super stressful moment in this movie. And I about had a heart attack, and I've never forgotten that film since.
That is a scary film.
Oh, it was a scary film. You throw in a cat that you didn't expect to be there, and you've got some heart-pounding terror going on, let me tell you.
So, Paul, have you seen The Ring or any other similar style supernatural horror film?
I've never heard of The Ring, let alone seen it.
Okay, so here's a task for you then. Will you watch The Ring and report back to us on whether or not you found it scary or not?
Yes, I will.
Yes. All right, we're going to report back on whether Paul Dersley got scared by The Ring.
Well, if you find it and send me the details, I'll look at it.
Yes.
But I'm not going to look at it. Look it up myself.
I just want to know whether you get scared by it and whether because these things, they play in,
Well,
play in my head.
as I said, it defines scared. I could tell you things that I don't like in films is if you know that there's going to be explosion in X seconds, but they don't tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I really don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that at all. The sort of the sense of anticipation.
Would you measure your heart rate throughout the film and report back?
That is kind of proof that you got scared.
Well, I will. I will react to the film, and so you will get shocks and
and I'm with Paul on this because it's geared to do that, right? It's geared to have suspenseful music and or trigger you in a certain way. I'm more interested in afterwards, like when you turn it off and you're alone in your house and it's dark and you've got to go to bed.
And there's a cat that you don't have.
You don't have the jumps on your face. Yeah. And you're lying in bed and you think, I'm a bit
well, yes,
creepy.
it's the shock thing, because I certainly wouldn't tell you the time when I'm watching it, because I know you'd come over and.
That is exactly
that
what
is
would
what we'd
happen.
do.
I have to say, last
Although
week...
I did do that to my mother once a long while ago when there was a horror film on that she was watching.
What did you do?
And I remember going into the garden and sort of scraping and tapping a twig on the window.
Oh, that's mean but funny.
The problem was she got up and locked the back door, so I couldn't get in.
No more than you deserve, sir. No more than you deserve, sir. No more than you deserve, sir. No more than you deserve, sir.
Can a fish be a ghost?
Well, again, its definition, it is a ghost, the soul of something. So the question is, does a fish have a soul?
Yeah.
And can that? So obviously, my argument was that a fish is rarely going to have unfinished business. He's just swimming around in a fish, and then he gets eaten, and that's just fish life, right?
I know none of us are particularly religious, but is there a stance on animals having souls?
Different people think different things. I mean, Buddhism, it's the chain of life that there's sort of everything is reincarnated into everything else.
What about Christianity?
Different versions of Christianity have different versions. Historically, sort of medieval traditional Christianity, humanity was distinguished by the fact that it had things with souls and other things didn't have souls,
right?
Which then allowed them to be super cruel and horrible to animals, which is not really very nice. I think the modern view is that it's much more likely that animals have souls, but I think your mileage may vary depending on the church you visit.
What about the fish called the soul?
Like a Dover sole.
A Dover sole.
Does a Dover sole have a soul?
If it's got kids, I suppose.
Let's talk about Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yes.
Ghost hunters.
Extraordinaires.
Extraordinaires.
Mentally unwell.
Yeah. What's your feeling on Ed and Lorraine Warren? And make sure you mark this as alleged.
Why don't you take a guess?
So you think they're con artists?
I don't think it. Well, I can't say. They play to those people who wish to believe. You see, I can't really say because I don't know. All I've got about them is what you have said.
Okay.
So I think that the question of whether you believe there are ghosts is separate to the question of whether or not they are con artists in the sense of deliberately defrauding people. Because they could quite easily totally believe in ghosts and be in good faith doing all the things they did.
Yeah.
So whether or not ghosts are really sort of irrelevant to the question of whether they were consciously doing things for their own benefit or whether they were actually trying to help people, but through the prism of their own belief system.
I mean, you touched on this with Arthur Conan Doyle, right? And mediums and Harry Houdini trying to debunk the mediums that were defrauding people essentially of their money.
A more recent one is James Randi, isn't it? He's died recently, but he was the same sort of thing, a magician who used to basically rip them all apart. And he used to do television specials about it. It was very, very good.
Yeah, I'll see if there's anything on YouTube and I'll link to it in our episode descriptions because I've seen some of his stuff where he's... I think he had a challenge, didn't he? He set $1 million challenge or something where if you could prove it, he'd give you the money. And I think loads of people over 30 years and no one was ever able to prove it. It was all magic tricks and such. But to your point, there are some people that I think do believe that what they're doing is talking to the dead. And then there are those that clearly have electronic earpieces and know what they're doing and are gaming a system.
Isn't it, between I'm interpreting. So in the Snedeker house, the kid was schizophrenic. He could hear voices. That is beyond doubt. Mm-hmm. It was diagnosed as schizophrenia in the case of the scientific view. Yep. But if you're a devout Catholic, then hearing voices, that voice could be the devil, right? That's an absolutely understandable place to end up. Now, if you then exercise it and make drama and oversell your book about it, then you're into the territory of how decent are you as a person.
Yeah. There are a lot of people that are interested in it, though. Like the haunted house phenomena, the ghost stories that are out there. It's
the bits that
trouble
Halloween.
It's like horror films, isn't it? It's the titillation more than anything else. It's the you could. It's not it's not going to hurt you, but you're going to get your heart rate up and it'll be exciting and you can talk about it afterwards. It'd be totally different if those sort of things, if there was a 50% chance that you die.
Yeah.
It would be totally different.
I think it probably would be, yeah. Similar to my question about, is a zombie a ghost? My next question, is a demon a ghost? Because this subject matter was ghosts, and we had quite a few demon-related subject matter in this.
This was the influence of the Warrens, because all of the stories, and they were presented as hauntings, tended to, especially in my time period specifically, the Snedeker was the main meat, if you will. They interpreted everything as demons. They didn't really seem to go for ghosts as a concept.
Right.
But I was saying ghosts include spirits, and I then broadened that into demons being a form of spirit.
Interesting.
But yeah, you could argue that it's not a ghost, that doesn't count as a ghost.
Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about demons to know whether or not they are an evil spirit from 30,000 years ago that's just had time to dwell and get angrier and more evil over the years.
Well, I think you distinguish between the ghosts of humans and non-human spirits. Right? A demon. No one thinks a demon was once a human. They all think demons are some other parallel dimension entity type thing. Whereas ghosts, in its most traditional form, is a dead human being, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was pushing the envelope in terms of what I was calling ghosts a little bit.
Paul, thoughts?
I was just thinking, it's funny that lots of ghosts speak the same language of people who see them. It's like the old Star Trek thing. Whenever two spaceships appear next to one another, they're always the same way up.
Oh, I see. That wasn't what I was expecting you to say, but yeah, I guess so.
It's the same thing. Oh, they happen to be speaking my language.
I thought because in Star Trek, two alien species turn up and they're able to talk to each other. And
I was expecting that as well.
And I was fully ready to correct you on that.
I believe it was called a Babel fish, wasn't it?
That was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Well, they had one that was a translator.
It was a fish that translated. You stuck it in your ear.
Was it a ghost fish?
I suppose if it died and you left it in your ear for long enough, it might be whispering in your ear, "Why did you do this?"
I'm out of questions. You got any questions for Mr. Paul Dersley?
No, I don't.
Okay, so then that leaves me to ask Paul, do you have any questions for us? We never asked this, and I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for you to be like, in your research, did you blah, blah, blah? Did you really think this? Did you really think that? Do you have any questions for us, Mr. Paul Dersley?
So why specifically, Ryan, are you fascinated by ghosts and these sort of sci-fi and all of this
nonsense,
irrational nonsense? Yeah, because lots of people are.
Yeah, no, that's true. I have a creative mind. I have an imagination that runs away with me. I like stories. I like the unexpected. I've always liked.
So you're calling me not creative then?
I don't remember saying that.
I don't think it's a question of creativity. It's a question of what Ryan. You trade in facts and information, and Ryan trades in stories.
Well, yes. I could sort of understand that. I find science fiction quite difficult because I don't know what the definition is. There's sort of soft science fiction and hard science fiction. I don't know which is which, but one of them is science fiction that actually does have a scientific base and is not that far from what can happen now, and it won't break any scientific laws. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
But it's the other stuff with sort of superluminal travel and, well, anything with fantasy, and I just don't get it. Or with like dragons and God, I just don't get that.
I guess because it's like dreams. It's there is metaphor and symbolism in the artistry of it. Not everything has to exist in the world in which we live. There is an escapism that is formed as part of storytelling.
I think you have two different versions of truth, though. For you, something to be true, it must be real in a sort of physical sense. Whereas for something to be true to Ryan, it can be a non-corporeal truth, an emotional truth. and that he doesn't then mind that trading in metaphor and magic and imagery that isn't literally correct can convey a different kind of truth. Whereas for you, you're so distracted by the fact that things are not real, in inverted commas, that you don't then reach that other truth because you're too busy going, well, but you can't do that.
So are you saying it's a weird type of faith?
No, it's not. It's not faith. It's a means to an end. That
faith in science.
No, it's not even faith in science. I think it's that something doesn't have to be literally true to enable you to understand things better.
It's a suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, I guess it is a suspension of disbelief. I know that this is not. I know there is not dragons, but if there were dragons,
this is what it might look like.
Something that might happen in one's relationship with these dragons. But you, Paul, are so bothered by there are
emotionally
not dragons.
Retarded, I think, is the phrase you mean.
No, that's not true. I don't think it's that. I just think that people just think differently. I don't think there is.
You do think differently, Ryan.
I do. I'm just different. So do you have a question for Peter, or can we move to the grading?
Yeah, okay. You played a couple of noises that were supposed to be people speaking. Now,
yeah.
I couldn't hear anything in those, even though you gave the suggestion of what it is, because, again, there's a test, isn't there? You can play that piece of music or noise once, nobody hears anything, but then someone suggests what it's saying and everybody can hear what is being said.
Yeah, I have to say, I found the electronic voice phenomena wholly unconvincing. Because it was, even, as you say, even after having been told what you're listening for, which obviously makes life a lot easier, I wasn't really hearing any of it. The evidence I brought to the table left the pro-ghost lobby in a pretty poor position, I would have to say, between the picture of the levitating, which was very obviously a child leaping, and the sounds of people saying things, none of which I could really hear properly.
Yeah.
Didn't look good for ghosts.
But the thing that did look good for ghosts is the fact that when we were doing the Ouija board, it gave you a grading of E.
Yes.
So I guess we will find out whether or not the ghost was accurately predicted.
Or are they correct?
Or are they correct?
The spooky
the word.
But of course, this is an interesting question in causality, isn't it? If I were to give you that grade...
Have you proved it? Or was that always the case?
Well, I was never going to give that grade, so...
Well, let's find out after the jingle. So, we're here in the grading. Let's find out. Was the ghost right? Will it be an E? Find out now on History Happened Everywhere, The Verdict. Sponsored by Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Well, this is a difficult one because it's Pete, and I usually give him good grades.
Yeah, you certainly do.
Hey, no fear or favour, sir.
I've
You have to
noticed that.
give us the grades that you feel is appropriate. It must be difficult to grade something about which you don't believe any of it. That doesn't bode well for me,
so
does it?
it's almost sort of the reverse. If you sort of do something good, I could sort of say, well, that's actually rubbish because you're talking rubbish, and so I have to give you a low score. And if you do something really bad, by sort of saying, well, they don't exist, goodbye, you get an A+. But of course, I'm using my bias on that.
I have to say, it did not occur to me to attempt the podcast to be in its entirety, they don't exist, goodbye. But if that's what it takes to get an A+, I'll bear that in mind.
Let me think. It's sort of hovering between...
Like a ghost.
I kind of want an E, just to prove the ghost right.
I kind of want you to have an E too, to kind of get my grades up. The tally.
B-. I was hovering between B- and C+. And as it was Pete, I gave a B-. If it was you, I'd have given a C+, obviously.
Favoritism, terrible.
He says, with a smirk on his face.
How awful.
It must be terrible to be you.
What a dreadful life that Ryan has.
Well, say that, I wouldn't wish anybody to be me, my God.
Oh,
If I believed in ghosts, I'd have given you a worse grade because you've added to the proof that they don't exist.
true.
I sort
You
of
were
did,
quite
didn't
cynical,
I? I was
yeah.
not super ghost
You were
positive.
sceptical. B- it is. It is logged in the book.
The ledger.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
My pleasure.
We have to do our thing now, don't we?
We do.
All right. Should we do it?
Do a little sign off.
Is this me?
Yeah.
All right. I want to thank you for listening. And if you'd like to get in touch about any of the things that we've talked about in this episode of The Verdict, we can be found on our Twitter account, which is at hhepodcast, or you can email us at hhepodcast@gmail.com. And you never know, you might end up featured on a future show.
One way to definitely feature on a future episode is to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us, helps others find the show and builds the audience and joins the community. In the meantime, you can find and join...
Wait. Did you hear that? Sorry. No, sorry. I just sorry, man. I interrupted you in a flight. Sorry. Do you want to do that again?
Right. So one way to definitely feature on a future episode is to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us, helps other people discover the show.
Wait, no, I'm hearing it again. Can you hear it? It doesn't matter. Sorry. All right, I'm sorry, man. I'm not hearing it anymore.
That's all right, no problem. So one way to definitely feature on a future episode is to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. That helps us.
See,
And
can you, sorry.
Oh, God, here comes the punchline. God, we all know what's coming next.
one way to definitely feature on a future episode is to rate and review the show on Apple
Oh, man,
Podcasts.
there it is again. Paul, can you hear it?
Like a whistling, kind
Just
of
like a weird...
creaking.
weird
Well,
sound.
I can hear that there's a punchline coming soon.
Oh, my God! 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 My God!
And there it is.